Alright folks, and welcome back to another episode of Casting Conflicts. We are whittling down to the last of our regular season matches, as only 2 left to go here. And we're going to take a look at one of those today, as we're kind of just jumping past the leaderboard, going right into the predictions, as we've got vesaven taking on oooje in a potential here for oooje to go clean for the season in terms of sets, as he is 1 set win away from doing so. Face the last line of defense for, I guess, someone, whoever that person against oooje might be. I don't know who you are, but that faces your last line of hope. And with me in the booth today is Jump. Jump, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's always nice to see 2 top performing players, oooje with 4-0 for his sets, vesaven for 3-1. It's going to be a solid showing no matter what happens.
And speaking of showing, I mean, who do you think's going to show up today? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this matchup here, as we see Vesa's, heavy beater, red, yellow monster stuff going up against the tried and true windy hooks deck from oooje. I think he's called it something differently, but I mean, seeing hooks in Neword always reminds me of just classic windy hooks. Regardless, I mean, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
So this is going to go to whoever brings out the early tempo. It's going to be, in my opinion, a strong push to mulligan for as early game as you can get. If you've got hovels, that's awesome. If you've got lumberjacks, if you've got elvish thieves, all these kinds of units that you can just throw onto the board early game and get that early presence, it's going to be hard for the other deck to come back. So if I were to make a guess, I think oooje might have a bit more of an edge with the globals, and they can't get cleared away as easily since vesaven's not running too much direct burn for all of the globals, all of the hovels. He can only hit a few of them.
Yeah, with targets or with cards in his deck like Bold, Blue Fire that is, and even one Witch Ball, he's got to pick and choose his targets very carefully throughout the games if he ends up seeing those cards in his hand. But yeah, I kind of agree with you here. Jump, oooje I think has lately had better earlier boards in his seasonal games so far from what I've seen from him. So if he can get that edge established early, I think he's got a strong chance. But likewise for Vesa, if he's able to get in aggressively, beat down on some of oooje's key targets here, he might have a chance to sneak away with a win as well here. But of course, there's only one way to find out who is going to take our first matchup here, as we've got a game to play. So let's go ahead, folks. Game number 1 coming at you right now. And we're back to the battlefield. Game number 1. Okay, gonna sub away the pillar here. Get the Hovel Blacksmith L-Blade. Pretty good for what oooje wants to see in his opener jump.
That's a great start. Now, I haven't reviewed the decks too recently, so let me just take a quick look there. And we'll check what vesaven's running. It looks like he's got just some strong units, lots of health, and some burn. He's running 3 copies of only 2 copies of Dagger Storm, some Dragon's Fire. All right, lots of different options. This could go either way, but it's great to have Lightning Blade in hand when you see a hovel on the other side.
Especially positioned like that, it just gives the blade so much more value.
Exactly.
We are going to probably see Maddie come down, though, for turn here. That will yield a Pyromancer. Okay, not the Tarius. That
Pyromancer is probably not ideal, because vesaven's going to want to spread out his positioning for the Pyromancer, and it will kind of take away from the Lightning Blade.
Yeah, that's certainly a big factor to consider. So we'll probably see Maddie.
Now, neither of them Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
No, I mean I'm just you know me, Jump. I'm the play-by-play guy. So when there's
Yeah,
plays
yeah.
happening, I'm just calling them out here. So don't worry about me. We do see Mighty move down here that will leave Vase the option to come in with the Elvish Thief, swipe for 3, and get a treasure for next turn, which could start to ramp out into some of those bigger boys that you might that you kind of told us are lurking in his deck. Blue Fire connecting to the Pyromancer. That will take him away
Yeah.
from play, of course, and the Elvish Thief swiping in. So we are potentially seeing a bigger boy for the next turn here.
Yeah. It's interesting he went for the Pyromancer and not for the Hovel. Um, it, it's not always clear which one you want to do, but what that tells us about Vesaven's hand is that he's probably not got any ranged units to deal with another ranged unit,
like a Dark
and
Bender.
like a Dark Bender, or he could have potentially another burn to deal with the Hovel later. But I would predict it's one of those.
Or maybe, I mean, we're going to see Minotaur come down now for Vase. His strategy is kind of just brute forcing his way in
Brute
past the
force, yeah.
hovel. That's again what Vase's style tends to be here, just shoving big things down people's throats here, and often they can't really respond most of the time here. As we see another hovel pickup for oooje that might go down, but he might want to divert some force to deal with the Minotaur approaching.
I would suggest that one is let's deal with what's on the board right now, and you can always deal with other things later. What I would suggest for oooje right here is trade the Matty into the first rat, and then just block face so that Minotaur can't get there, and don't actually attack the Minotaur.
I think that's what we're going to see here, at least in a way. Rat coming up to block Castle. Lumberjack also not going to move here. Maddie will be put into the rat here. We're debating it. Looks like we are going to go ahead and go through with it, so that is fine. And we've set up
That's
another hovel, and we got some good blocks.
exactly the play I was hoping he would do. Yeah, and right now, unless he's got a direct burn that Minotaur can't get to face, and even if he does clear away one of these units, sure, he's got more health, but oooje has 2 rats spawning next turn. And that's a curious position.
Ooh, so now we're kind of trying to go after the hovels, or at least that's what Vesa is potentially thinking here. We move the Minotaur away so Lumberjack can't get any draw value. This puts that Minotaur, though, up in front of 2 rats here, which we're probably going to see Blacksmith come out to deal with for a more efficient trade, maybe? Or
Yeah,
Smith
Blacksmith could
Hellblade?
take out 2 of them, but Lightning Blade takes out a Minotaur on its own and does 3 to the um, whatever that one's called, the
Serpent
Serpent.
Witch. Providing the blocker rat.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I would say you could even go up to 2 blocker rats because that's the Serpent Witch is in a position where it can't really do much other than go towards the hovel. So if you block that path, you're good enough.
Alright, now we're seeing Minotaur Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. That is going to be a... I mean, we could put another L-Blade into that, but that gets rid of 2 out of what potentially is 3. I'm not remembering that
What
exactly.
I'm looking at, yeah, we're just doing it. He's running that straight to face
Oh,
because yeah, Vesaven went so far onto the attack that he's not worried about his own castle, and 8 to face plus getting rid of the opposing hovel
big,
is
big.
huge swing into ooje's favor. This is looking like a tough spot. Vesaven's only way back into this is his current card advantage. He's got 5 cards, but he has to deal with these hovels.
Yeah, pretty much a now moment.
So
Dragon's
yeah,
Fire could be a big turn here. It could burn away these rats here, make that
if he's
Lumberjack tradable with the rat, getting rid of one of those hovels.
if he's got Dragon's Fire, now's the time 100% to play it. Get rid of one hovel and all the threats on board, the current threats. Bracken is also gonna do some work.
It
Now, I
is, but
imagine the
not as much as I
reason
would
he
have
was
liked.
waiting is because he was probably considering taking out an armory or blacksmith or something like that along the way.
Hmm. Uh,
So I'm sure. Oh, that's a good draw for oooje. I'm sure we're gonna see a trade from the rat into that Minotaur, and if he plays another global buff that he just drew, he can trade another Hassan City guard plus rat into that
Yeah.
uh,
We're
the
seeing the
new
global spam
Kraken.
power, unfortunately, here take shape as we've got Temple, Armory, Blacksmith, one of the big three. Following up that with a lot of cheaper units here, getting really massively big here, like guards, rats.
Yeah, the whole board is clear. Vesaven has no units. oooje has 3 global buffs plus a hovel and 2 units. This is not looking to be in the position Vesaven wants it to be.
I mean,
So I'm looking at his deck right now, minus any potential substitutions he could have put in. And really, his expensive cards are Mordok and one more Kraken is possibly his only saving grace. He does have a sneaky Dwarven scope as well that could potentially come in handy. But that's about it. And the card advantage that he once had is
now
no
starting to
longer
dwindle. Yeah.
showing too much presence.
Especially now with the freezing pillar kicking in on those bottom serpent witches, of course, that would put Vase in a position for chain from that temple, and with how many units are coming out onto the board here, it's not ideal for him to set up this kind of chain at this point in the game. We do see the fear back on the shaman to try and get some cycle, as well as push back more chain potential for oooje. We'll see a lumberjack make an appearance too. Not going to be able enough to kill off this guard, unfortunately, but he will get a draw off of it. We'll see if he makes good use of it. Again, if Dragon's Fire is somewhere, I would like to see it hit the board eventually, but it seems really far removed for that actually to be its saving grace. Catherine comes out, trades with the guard, getting rid of it.
Yeah, I want to call back to the positioning that you briefly mentioned, where uh, oooje put his freezing pillar in a spot where the only way to attack it sets up chain lightning for both of the serpent witches and the castle. And really, it's a no, there's no way around it.
Yeah.
Vesaven, eventually, if he wants to unfreeze those units, he has to set himself up for chain lightning. It's really, really good positioning.
Unfortunately, it's going to get worse here as now Dragon Knight makes his appearance. Thankfully, that's all we could play on oooje's side. We've got 2 more pillars that are sort of dead in the hand at this particular point. Definitely not going to be so if we can get rid of this pillar, but it looks like we are going to focus more on the units as we see Northland's Ranger come out taking a chip off of the Shaman here. Now, I believe, was that in the primary list as you were just looking at that, or is this...
Yeah, that's one of 2 in the primary list.
Okay.
But he's now out of cards, and oooje has Chain Lightning to kill off, and he's got Freezing Pillar. I imagine by the end of this turn, there won't be a single unit left over that isn't either dead or frozen.
Probably here.
And
Or if we're
with
face, or excuse me, oooje, we might just go into face here. Faithful Drake connecting to 4. Chain makes it 5. Dragon Knight coming in, going to kill off the Witch as well here. That's going to be another 4 to face from the Rat.
yeah, so then I imagine Rusty Hooks will kill off that last Ranger, and then Freeze will deal with the Serpent Witch, although he could do it the other way around with Hooks' extra reach.
Yeah, going to be the other way
There
around
it
here.
is.
I think at this point, I don't think we are able to win the game if we are
No,
Vase, which is
there
most unfortunate.
with just one card in hand, there are no cards possible that can deal with this.
And there
So
is a
that's going to be a
surrender.
surrender.
Oof, 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 oof. Well, I mean,
So
uh, go ahead.
that's only game 1.
It's
We've
only game
got
1, yes.
2 more games. There is potential for a comeback, and we do get to see Vesaven with a counter pick now. And we've seen both decks before. They're very strong decks, but the early double rat hovel just shows such a dominant position once again, especially with a few globals to back it up.
Indeed, indeed. So, with that in mind, folks, we're going to go ahead and take you to the post-match for game number 1 really quickly and then jump into match number 2. So, let's go ahead and jump to that right now. All right, folks, coming back after game number one, a solid oooje victory to start us off here, Jump. This was just I think, very well played match by him. Just on account of just, hey, look at all my globals and buildings to Vase's one hovel. It just kind of, I think, snowballed over the course of the game here, and that's, at least in my opinion, what really won him the matchup.
Right, from the opening hand to the end of the game, he had great draws, great plays, great positioning, and there almost wasn't much vesaven could have done. There was just good luck and good plays is hard to counter. So a good showing, and we'll have to see what vesaven decides to bring in game two. Do you have any predictions what that might be?
Uh, Predictions on what we could see for game two. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what we could see from vesaven. I know he's had some other decks towards the earlier parts of the season here, but wasn't as successful with them. I think the monster build that he's been on, I'm not sure if it's this one or a modification of one that he used previously, but I know there was a game 2 deck, I think a pirate druid, which followed a similar style of monster beats that I think we might see from him for game number 2 if he's feeling confident. That's usually his go-to deck choice for game number 2 if he's on the losing end. But at least that's just my prediction here. Why are you thinking that maybe he should stick with this? Are you thinking about something different here?
Well, so the general advice I tend to give for countering globals, or really mystic rats, is you can deal with it in two ways. The classic is no interactions, was a deck built to counter global swarm with mystic rats and stuff like that. So any sort of red yellow combo would be great. But another option is just some beefy units, and if you get the early tempo advantage and rush down continuously before oooje can set up his globals, then that's another option. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he runs the same deck again. But I think to give him the best chance of a game 2 victory, I think I'd like to see vesaven bring a yellow-red deck.
Alright, well, there's only one way we can find out if that's the case here. I've got nothing else to add here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump to game number 2 right now. Alright, folks, and game number 2 underway as we're going to see a quick shuffle out. And, okay, well, unfortunately for oooje, this hand isn't looking as spicy as it was for game number 1, as Hooks makes an appearance as the only sort of foreseeable early game play. Vesa also running back the same colors, so what does that tell you about what he might be doing for game number 2, Jump?
So as I said in the post-match, I thought that Vesa's first deck looked honestly like it could counter the global spam. It's just that oooje had such a strong opening hand last time that he wasn't able to deal with it. But I think if vesaven is running the same deck, maybe swapped out a few cards or optimized it a bit more, it honestly has a decent showing. It's not a bad counter option.
Right, so we'll see if that is the case here as Manfish makes an early appearance here, and judging by oooje's hand, he can't deal with that as well as I think he would like to. We're going to see Lumberjack travel down here, and the Rusty Hooks make an appearance as well to trade off with the Lumberjack, or at least kill it off. Getting that established early on is fair and fine, I'd imagine. Probably see Vesa take the 2 from Manfish just based on his play style. I wouldn't be surprised if that was his option here.
Yeah, and if he had a 3-cost unit to follow it up, would be even better. We'll see what he can do. In his current state, Rusty Hooks can drag the Manfish into a different position in order to get the explosion somewhere else, but right now he would have to put himself in a very awkward position if he wanted to drag the explosion away from castle. I don't think that's going to be the play.
No, I think we might just simply... We're debating an armory here. We actually had a option to go L-Blade to face to get rid of that hovel here and sort of leave the manfish alone. Do you think it's the right play, just kind of backing off here, being more defensive, getting these things cleared off here like the manfish, rather than going in, taking out the hovel while you can, and maybe give Vesa some rat value later down the line?
Yeah, I'm always, especially like if you look at the colors oooje is running, he's got the only way to deal with buildings really is this lightning blade. He doesn't have Mystic Journey. He doesn't have. I mean, he has winds and hooks, but he doesn't have companions or direct burn or anything like that. So I think while he had the opportunity, taking an extra 2 damage to face is not that big of a deal.
Right.
That's what I would have recommended, but that's not what we saw. So we're gonna have to see where that leads us in the future.
We'll see the Hovel on oooje's side get played down, as well as some Hassan City Guard and Lumberjack action to follow up here. So a little bit of a early flood on the board with some units here, although we are getting closer to the territory where this can all be massively burned away. We lost that armory to a blue firebolt earlier, so we don't have that global protection to keep some of these guys alive here. Coin into Dragon's Fire, there it is. There's the early cleanup here, and that is
That's a
going
big
to
one.
be rough.
Now the problem for vesaven is he needs to find a way to get past these sea witches or whatever one-eye Maddie spawns. I imagine that's the only play that oooje can make right now is play a ranged unit.
Yeah.
And if vesaven can get past that, the hovel is not so protected right now. One minor positioning thing that I would recommend for oooje's behalf is if you're not playing against Vikings, you can actually position the rat hovel on the back row, diagonal behind your castle, and so you get a rat spawn right behind your castle, and it's able to send it forward each time. But tell me about the play that just happened.
Well, the Dagger Storm to clear off the Sea Witch there is pretty big here, forcing oooje now having to play that Maddie to reinstate some of his board presence. Unfortunately, Vesa wasn't able to do as much, I think, after that here. I mean, I don't even know if I think he got the ratchet. I think he did. I might have missed it. I kind of was listening as you explained that hovel positioning too well, so I did miss that chip damage if it did come in. Meanwhile, we're seeing a much better board here for oooje. We've got a Headwood that could potentially clear out this hovel on its own. Following up with the second Sea Witch to maybe generate oooje some additional skeleton boys. Although this Ranger is going to be quite the nuisance.
He's a brave ranger rushing right into the sea witch, and that freezing pillar is the perfect draw. Could not have been better. That's the best way to deal with the ranger is say, whoa, just slow down and let me have 2 turns to deal with you instead. Oh, that's interesting.
So Sea Witch is being a bit of a brave soul as well, going ahead, being rushed up.
Yes,
We do want to remove the hovel, so we will take that option. We
but
don't have
I mean,
enough to kill with the rest of the units, so I think we have the Freezing Pillar here just to protect ourselves a bit.
definitely freezing pillar is still the play to make, and I would put it right in front of ranger's face. Yeah, it works, but it's not
It's been
not going to last as long.
clunky positioning here. I mean, thank God we're not up against Chain ourselves on oooje's side here, because this would be fantastic Yarm value if we had it. Unfortunately,
Oh,
we
would
do
it
not.
ever? Yeah, he already used coin as well, so we're
That's true.
capped at 8 gold for this turn.
Yeah.
What else could we see? I mean, another Dragon's Fire would be pretty good clear, but it it really isn't necessarily enough when you're up against um, the Rat Hovel with globals to back it up. He
Right.
needs some way to deal. No. Well, that hovel will not last long, I can tell you that.
No, bit of a desperation howl from Vesa as he
Eh,
kind of just throws it out there as a bit maybe as bait. But that does put his Griffin as well. Griffin to free the Ranger is fine, but again, connecting those units, creating that chain value for oooje's Temple, it doesn't really look too good here. Again, going into the second game, as we're seeing a pretty near repeat of what happened in game one. Just the slow value of Temple
oh, he's
inching ever
gonna
so
do it.
closer.
I was just gonna say about this positioning. He's got the option to do a sneaky play, and it's gonna be hard to explain it just with words. But I'm glad oooje showed off. If for the viewers who are watching this, you can
I mean, that's
rewind that
lethal.
play, and
That's
what an
lethal.
excellent lethal! Yeah,
Oh my god. I mean, I thought.
connecting them all together for chain. Just the power of the winds of Njord comes and shows its face.
And I thought we still had game left. I was ready to kind of keep commentating, but as soon as we hit that Nord, it was just, hey, by the way, game's over. All right, well,
Right.
we're moving.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people in that situation would have picked the Mordok play because big unit. But if you're an experienced player of that deck like oooje is,
He
you can
sees
see
the
the
lethal,
lethal
just
from a
spits
mile
it in the
away.
water. Oh my god here. But that is an incredible play here to secure the not only second game, but the set as well. We're going to break that down for you in the post for game number 2. So let's go ahead and waste no time getting to that right now. Alright folks, and coming after game number 2 here with the set win for oooje and a clean sweep for his regular season, ending off at a 5-0 in sets jump. But I mean, I gotta hand it to him, very impressive, and with the way he delivered that lethal with Winds in the Nord, ending our game number 2, I think it shows why oooje has sort of earned this clean set victory, or clean set sweep, I guess is the proper way. Regardless, I think he's earned it here, especially coming after game number 2.
Season sweep, I think, is what you're looking for. Yeah, not just the set, but the whole season. Well, I guess it wasn't a clean sweep, as we see he did drop 2 games across the whole season, but wow, what an impressive showing across the whole season, and what an ender for game number 2.
Yeah, absolutely wild here, coming in with the wins play, and a position that we assumed might have gone to vesaven just based on how he started. It started out so well, landing that lumberjack in, forcing oooje to kind of redirect himself with the rusty hooks, you know, sneaking in with manfish, forcing oooje to ignore his initial hovel. There was a lot of early goings that kind of pushed Vesa in a more winning direction. But I don't know. What do you think was the big turning point here in that matchup? Because, I mean, I think I have an idea on what it could be, but I wanted to hear your opinions on what we could what was the, I think, point where we knew it was going to be oooje's game.
I gotta say, when he coined into the Dragon's Fire, and then it allowed oooje to play more units on the board, and it was a Sea Witch threatening to spawn even more units, and I guess vesaven saw that he didn't have any more global clear, so he panicked at the Sea Witch and threw down a Dragon's Fire, only for the very next turn oooje played a Maddie and another Sea Witch, and it was kind of at that moment where the game was turned around and oooje was clear coasting towards the end.
So, an idea that maybe Vesa hit the panic button too early, throwing out all of his responses to single target, you know, threats and, you know, things that maybe if he had built up the board for, you know, allowing the Sea Witch to come in on top of, you know, maybe like taking a bit of damage, getting more Dragon's Fire value, and then maybe building up a bigger comeback here. Do you think that might have been the direction he should have gone for?
Yeah, it's hard to say it in hindsight because of course it's always clearer then, but the way he used the Dragon's Fire while having no presence on the board himself didn't really change tempo into vesaven's direction. And then it was the same the next turn with the Dagger Storm. It's a strong, 2 very strong cards, but if they're not helping you gain tempo, then you probably will end up losing the game, which is what we saw here.
Right, right. So, I mean, honestly, with that being said, I think that is going to be a good point to leave it here as we are closing out on oooje's set victory. Seasonal sweep, I guess, is the proper term that Jump has informed me on. So, with that being said, folks, let's go ahead and jump to our leaderboard to show you how this match affects our standings.